Rupama,
Sure.
what you
Yeah.
said is you do something with passion. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I have always told people, I use the term very often, passionate detachment. If I have to sum up what the verse 2.47 of Bhagavad Gita, that is, karmaneva dhikarase ma phaleshu kadachana, everybody talks about this. But the second part is, ma karma phala hetur bhurma te sangot swara karmani. Now, what does Krishna say over here? You have the right to perform your duties. Okay. Now, when you're performing your duties, perform them with passion. Okay. And then Krishna says, you're not entitled to the fruits of your action. So when you
Correct.
understand this part, that you're not entitled, so passion is your work. Okay. Do your work with passion, but understand results are not dependent on you. Results will happen what has to happen.
Correct. That point I completely understand.
Yeah.
But I am interpreting the word asakti as interest. Maybe that's not the correct translation of that word. Asakti is too much of interest. Maybe that's one way to say it. But asakti in its normal form, without it, you can't really do anything. Unless you have interest, asakti, then you can't really do anything.
Yeah. Passionate detachment.
So maybe the definition of the word asakti in this one should be changed in my understanding. Asakti is just not translated to interest. It should be translated into too much interest.
Possible.
It is without unhealthy attachment. Having unhealthy attachment is the word.
Yeah.
When I explain the difference between commitment and attachment, as a businesswoman, you want to have commitment, but to have only those customers, it's an attachment. And there is a very thin line between these two words. I'll give my best, and this must happen my way. So this must happen my way. I mean, I'm putting myself first. Me, and myself. Self-ego. That is what Lord Krishna is trying to help us drop doership and ego, which is going to give us victory with this.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I'm really loving these sessions because they are making us only reflect a lot. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. The last session, session 5, was focused on emotional regulation. That is the cornerstone of strategic leadership. The core objective was to help leaders from reactive chaos to a proactive clarity by managing internal emotional disruptors. We spoke about identifying the fever. The fever is often a result of internal states like desire, anger, greed. Then we spoke about the anatomy of the loss, for which we also discussed 2.63rd verse from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where it clearly states that unmanaged anger leads to delusion, which eventually destroys our intelligence and the ability to discriminate. Then we also discussed about the hierarchy of self, and eventually we discussed the case study of Tata's Signur plant. Now today we are going to talk about the topic cognitive bias, the invisible filter. Now, why this topic? This topic is a natural progression from session 5, where session 5 was about the intellectual traps. Here we talk about how, when we are trying to proceed further, what are the biases that set in. Whether it is from regulation to discrimination. Session 5 taught the leaders how to calm their emotions, whereas in this session we will be talking about how to discriminate or how to develop the ability to see the world objectively once the emotions are quieted. We will also talk about how to address the ghost in the code. Even a calm leader can fail if they misinterpret reality. So this session focuses on identifying specific biases like confirmation, anchoring, or status quo. We also talk about understanding the biological hijack. So in this session, we are going to talk about the invisible filter is a result of the cognitive bias. Now, as a strategic leader, it's important that a person develops the ability to objectively discriminate. For this, one needs to master the shift from reactive impulse to strategic clarity. Has there been any instance where you have been 100% certain about a decision? It could be a business decision, it could be a professional decision, it could be a personal decision. Has it ever happened that you were 100% sure and then you watched it fail miserably? So it wasn't because of the market. It wasn't because of any external factors. It simply was because you happened to be wearing different kind of glasses because of your past experience, because of your mindset. Let's take an example. For example, in India, or even otherwise, let's say a traditional family business owner might often refuse to launch an e-commerce store because the traditional business owner prefers the customers. Let's say it's a cloth store. This business owner would prefer to the customer to come to the shop and feel the fabric. Even I myself, when I as a trainer, I could never think of conducting sessions, whether it is personality development or whatever, online. For me, I always wanted to be in front of the students because I felt that made a greater difference. But when the COVID lockdown came, we were all forced to go online. And then when we went online, there were many techniques that came up. Even right now, we are on a Zoom call. I mean, who could imagine conducting this kind of a session on a Zoom? So it is, what happens is, it's just that we have to look beyond that filter. That is what is important. That is what the Bhagavad Gita, the third shloka from the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita tells us. Sattva Nurupa Sarvasya Shraddha Bhavati Bharatah Shraddha Mayoyam Purushoyo Yachhadraha Sa Evasa. Now, what does this mean? The literal meaning is, of course, the faith of each person is accordance with their nature. Whatever a person's faith is, that they truly are. Now, if you look at it, let's look at an example of a chartered accountant. A chartered accountant audits a balance sheet. But before looking at the balance sheet, let's today look at the nature of the chartered accountant. If the chartered accountant is averse to risk, so what will the chartered accountant do? The chartered accountant will look at everything with caution. Or let's look at a business person. A business person, if that person is somebody who loves to take risk, so he or she, even in the conservative market, this person would try to go all out. So it is just the lens that a person wears that really makes a difference in the way the world looks at things. So strategy, if you look at, isn't objective maths. It's rather subjective. It's a subjective philosophy. Now, to begin with over here, as I've said, Vaikalyam. What is Vaikalyam? Vaikalyam is the deficiencies. Now, over here, we are talking about the 3 bugs that are there in our mental code. Our mind is programmed. There are 3 bugs in our mind, I would rather say. The confirmation bias, the anchoring bias, and the status quo bias. Now, what is the confirmation bias? There are people who love to have yes men around them. So, whatever they say, they want people to support. So, they want others to only listen. That makes them feel nice that they are always right. The second kind of bug is the anchoring bug, where you start with a mindset. You start wherever you anchor first. That is, wherever you start from. Such a person doesn't want to change that starting point. Let's say in a negotiation, in a negotiation, you go to a shop, or you go to in business, you're doing a kind of a negotiation. Let's say the vendor has talked about the product that you're trying to buy. Let's say the vendor has quoted, let's say 10,000 rupees. And you think that buying the product at 9,000 would be best. But the market rate for the product may be something like 5,000. Now, just because you think it is 9,000, if you have not done research, if you have not understood the market, what would happen is you would end up buying the product much higher than what you would get in the market. So it's important that you don't get stuck at just what you feel. It's important to keep the mindset open and try and understand what others are saying, so that research would help you in removing that anchoring bias. The third kind of, I would say, the bug that is there, status quo, means not changing the current scenario. That is chalta hai mindset. That is refusing to change. This is how I've always done it. So this is how I want to do, because this is the best. Not that the times have changed, not that the situation has changed, but it's just that I want to be in my comfort zone. So chalta hai. Now, most often we react instead of reflecting. This, I would call it as a biological hijack. What happens is, when someone challenges your idea, okay, what happens is there is a fear. There's a fear that sets in, and you feel that you're getting physically attacked, though the attack is not physical. What happened is, because let's say your child, you are so rooted in your idea, you feel that you're right, and your child comes up with a different mindset, okay, and you feel threatened. Now, you feel threatened because you are refusing to see from the child's mindset. I'll give you an example. During the lockdown, a lot of kids, they picked up certain words, they picked up certain mannerisms. Many of the kids, they faced the social media for the first time. My son too faced it, and he picked up a word, yaar. Now, yaar, how do adults take it? My father, when he heard it, he found it very awkward that a child is calling the parents yaar. So one day I thought of, I tried to keep an open mindset because I too felt that yaar is not a term for parents. So I sat with my child and I asked him that, I started with something like, I'm your mother. My son, innocently, he said that, Mama, but don't you say you're my best friend? And then it suddenly struck me, what he was trying to correlate is friend, yaar, and Mama is his best friend. So why not yaar? Now, while I and my dad, we found it very awkward, we reacted to the word yaar. But when I sat down and when I took a few moments and I reflected on what my child's thinking was, I realized that he was not that wrong. So that is what we are trying to say over here, that very often we tend to react. But instead of reacting, if we that reaction leads us to us becoming defensive, and we often get angry, we shut down somebody else's opinions. But instead of shutting down, if we try to listen and realize that it is actually not as we felt. So that danger of having that expert mindset, it is having an expert mindset is rather a trap. It is where we stop listening. Now, very often, people who are senior, people who are expert, what happens is, while somebody who is junior to you or who is not as experienced to you starts talking to you because you feel you know everything, you often stop listening halfway because you assume the further conversation. And because you assume that further conversation, you have really not completely diagnosed the issue. You have already formed an opinion and to start responding. Many of us do it. I too do it. And I already see Meenakshi smiling at it. This is actually a trap which most of us fall in. Many of us trainers, we fall in. But if we follow the 3-second rule, where we wait for someone to finish speaking, and then instead of reacting, because when we immediately react, our brain has not completely, though we have heard, but our brain has not completely processed what we have heard. So instead, we need to pause for 3 seconds. What happens is, during those 3 seconds, when you do not respond immediately out of habit, we use those 3 seconds. So our intellect, our buddhi will process what we have heard, and then we'll speak from intellect rather than the habit. That if you try this, it will really work. This is the cure for coming out of that training mindset. Now let's look at the case study, Tata Nano. Tata Nano, when they were trying to launch Tata Nano, it was the great Ratan Tata wanted to launch a safe 1 lakh car for the families. He wanted everybody to experience the luxury of a car. He wanted everybody to have the car, and the world was excited that having a car at 1 lakh, that means it became reachable for everybody. But what the company missed out, what many missed out, that in India, because this car was to be launched in India, and in India, people considered the car as a symbol of arriving. This is precisely what the marketing team missed. When they started marketing the car, as it being the cheapest. Now, the moment they started marketing the car as being cheapest, it became a symbol of poverty. Though Nano was a beautiful car, it had almost everything. But what happened? Because it became a symbol of poverty, and in India, car was considered as a symbol of arriving. Nobody wanted to travel in a car that represented poverty. So, though the decision to launch the 1 lakh Nano car was logically correct, but the marketing team failed to understand the psychology of the buyer. The psychology of the buyer was that car is, even if it is beyond 1 lakh, it is a sign of arriving. So I don't want to travel in that 1 lakh car. So because even if I buy that car, I am not really arriving in the scene. So this customer bias, the marketing team missed this customer bias, the status bias. There was also a flight 232 where the captain survived the total failure because he did not follow the intelligence that the manual was telling him. Instead, he used his strategic insight. He analyzed what he could see in the present. And what he did was, he did not let the manual stop him. He did not, yes, the manual was designed by experts, but the manual was not able to see the present situation. So in business, very often you would have history, you would have many other cases telling you how you should react. But finally, in the present, because today we are living in a world that is continuously dynamic, where the definition of business itself is changing, where the definition of customer is changing, a product or service, the way it is perceived, because we are living in a multicultural, hyper dynamic world where the boundaries, the national boundaries, are becoming more virtual. So in this, how I may pursue of as a problem, how I may pursue of as a product, may be different from what somebody else is pursuing. So it's important that while there are manuals written, while there are experts talking about, it's important for us to look at the current situation and then apply our own intelligence to it's important to take that calculative risk sometimes, and so that what happens is we get out of the continuation bias. Having said that, now it's time for Meenakshi to speak up. Over to you, Meenakshi.
Thank you, Dr. Sandhya. So we saw various case studies, things which experts planned to fail because they had assumptions, they lacked clarity, and they had inner fog. So how can we remove that inner fog? So I take reference from, again, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, shloka 3.39, which establishes a relationship between clarity, stability, and peace. Once we have clarity, then we'll have stability, and then ultimately we'll be gifted with the peace. The verses are recited as follows. Shraddha van labate jnanam tat parasam yatendriya jnanam labadva param shantim achirenandi gacchati. Where Lord Krishna is trying to say that a person with faith, focus, and sense control, that is Shraddha, Tatparata, and Sanyam, that person gains knowledge. Having gained this knowledge, they quickly attain deep inner peace. In 4-line shloka, this has been explained by Lord Krishna. But if we see the structure of the shloka, we find that there is a 3-step pathway to emotional peace. Number 1, Shraddhavan, right attitude. One has to have that right attitude, not a blind belief, but openness to learn, willingness to question oneself and others, trust in higher wisdom, trust in God Almighty, in whatever name we call Him. Why this matters? Why Shraddha matters? What happens when a person lives without Shraddha? The person defends his biases. He gets stuck in his own version of truth. And if you think you already know everything, clarity just cannot enter, because you already have the answer and you lack inquisitiveness. And definitely, whatever answer you have arrived at, you will consider that is the right answer. So as Dr. Sandhya rightly said, that Nano was launched with a difference that it's a poor man's car, but how the world responded to it, how the Indian market responded to it, where car is a status symbol. And such a big business group like Tata even failed. So second element in this shloka is Tatparata, which is the sincere effort, not casual listening, but deep reflection, consistent application, and inner work. Now, why does this matter? Understanding is just not intellectual, it is experiential. And clarity comes to those who are serious about seeing the truth. It doesn't come like just a person is having Shraddha and he is sitting with eyes closed and having clarity, everything inside his mind, but not focusing on, not digging it further, then obviously no truth will be seen. Number 3 is Sanyatendriya. Sanyatendriya is Sanyam, self-regulation, control over senses, impulses, and reactions. Now, why does this matter? If senses are uncontrolled, mind becomes reactive, not proactive. Clarity gets lost. And there won't be a difference between human beings and animals. Animals seems to be like they don't have control over their senses. They shout, they howl, they just overreact. But we human beings have the power to pause and choose to react. A distracted mind cannot see clarity. As a result of which, Jnana Labdva, what we get if we have the combination of these 3, gaining knowledge, which is not the bookish knowledge, it is the clear understanding of reality. And once we have the knowledge, we get Param Shanti, emotional calm, stability, freedom from inner conflict. Peace is not achieved, it is the result of right understanding. So once we have Why does that fog exist? Why that ambiguity exists within us? Because of the assumptions, emotional bias, incomplete understanding. And once we have these three things, we have to solve it by inculcating or cultivating more of Shraddha, Tatparata, and Sanyam within us. And if somebody, one example I can give, someone says something very hurtful. And if we take reference from this shloka 4.39, without 4.39, what will happen? Without taking this reference, these three qualities and then the ultimate peace, what will happen? Immediate reaction, emotional hurt, wrong assumptions, ambiguity. With 4.39, what happens? You will take a pause, Sanyam. You will reflect, Tatparata. You will stay open, Shraddha, which results in calm response. And once you give the calm response, you will find that you will have more of clarity and more of peace because nothing is going to disturb within. And Krishna is not telling us to control emotions, he's telling us to build clarity because when clarity comes, peace follows naturally. Right understanding is the foundation of emotional stability. Confusion creates emotion. Then what's going to dissolve it? Clarity. You don't need to fight every feeling. You just need to understand it. Peace is a byproduct of correct perception. Over to next slide. Taking the reference from Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, in continuance to 4.39, I've chosen shloka number 19 from chapter 3, which reads, Tasmad Sakta Satatam Karya Karma Samachara Asakto Hachara Karma Karma Prokti Purushaha, which means perform your duty constantly without attachment. By acting without attachment, a person attains higher state. 4-line shloka means only this. But if we do the deep interpretation, what Lord Krishna is talking about, what this shloka is saying is to have emotional balance, stress-free performance, and conscious action. And as a professional, as an adult, we want these three things. If we have these three things, we will be more than happy because it's every day is a new day and every day we have to perform. And we are expected out of so many things from, I mean, we have our own expectations and we have family expectations, professional expectations. One at a time, I mean, we just cannot think on one thing. Like today, I want just emotional balance. Tomorrow, I just want stress-free performance. Maybe 1 month after, I want conscious action. We want all these three things together at a time. What Krishna is not saying is do not work, do not care, become emotionless. What he's saying is work sincerely, give your best, but don't become emotionally dependent on the result. The word that arrives, that has been taken from Bhagavad Gita is asakti, asakta. What does this mean? Without unhealthy attachment. What is now the difference between commitment and attachment? If I say the sentence, I will give my best, what do you think? Is it a commitment or attachment? This is a commitment. And if I say, this must happen my way, I want it to be done like this is attachment. And by using the second sentence, I am entangling myself into emotional dependency, obsession without outcome, and anxiety. And by simply accepting that I'll give my best, I don't know what are going to be the external scenario, what is going to be the weather, what's going to happen with me in the family, or maybe to the vehicle which we are using, whatever be the situation. I just said I'll give my best, shows the right attitude, which is going to keep you calm. Your efforts are going to be calm. You'll be focusing on action and you will have stability. Why attachment creates disturbance? Because fear of failure increases, anxiety increases, emotions cloud judgment, and performance suffer. When we have an attached mind, it says, I must succeed and everyone must appreciate me. It results in stress, overthinking, emotional pressure. But if there is a detached mind, he simply says, I'll prepare sincerely and give my best. We can see clarity, calmness, and better performance here. So whenever, for everything, there is going to be two outcomes, success or failure. It is said, rightly by Dr. Sandhya many times, hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst. So success, whenever you have success, celebrate it. Whenever you have failure, be prepared for the next attempt. So success gives rise to ego, failure, self-worth collapses. These things happens to the person who works with attachment. And when a person works with a detached mind, then he gives full involvement externally. You are speaking, your mind is working, your eyes are blooming, and you have a big smile. Your hands are working, you are full of energy, and you're showing expressions. But internally, you have inner freedom. And that inner freedom is the beauty. And once you have this, you will have the eternal bliss or the peace as a byproduct. And before any action, one can always ask these three questions. Number one, am I working with focus? Am I focused on effort or outcome? Effort or outcome? Outcome is never in our hand. Karmandika vabhikaras tema phaleshu kadachana. Outcome is in the hand of the universe. And we are just one unit of that big, huge universe. So this one question, when you ask that, am I focused on effort or on outcome, you will get the answer. Second question, am I acting from clarity or fear? If you're having clarity, again, you know the answer. If you have the answer, you will write. Or if you are having the fear, then you will also know that your mind is preoccupied. How will it perform well? Third question, can I stay peaceful regardless of outcome? Come what may, I'm gonna be peaceful. I'm gonna be happy. I choose to be happy, success will follow. People say, I'll be successful, then I'll be happy. Gita says, be peaceful first, success will automatically follow. So there are a few powerful one-liners which I just suggested. You can have it on your WhatsApp, Insta statuses, Wheelway, or you can just write it on and save it on your desktop or wall, which is going to help you keep full energy. Peaceful action is powerful action. The more attached the mind is, the more disturbed the emotions are. Detachment improves performance because the mind becomes lighter. And many a times it is said that you use powerful words whenever you are using positivity and whenever you are using negativity. See, mind cannot be positive throughout the day, every time. So negativity comes, but do not invite and make them sit and have gossip with it. Try to avoid. Like when something negative comes in your mind, use very small words. Do not use powerful words. Like if you don't like behavior of someone, simply say, okay, fine. Just a little bit of frowning can do it. And if you say, I just detest the way she behaved in that, I do not like it. So these words become memory. And when it becomes memory, even every action has an equal and opposite reaction, it's going to come back to you. Now, I just want to connect all these three shlokas, right, from what Dr. Sandhya said on 17.13, which is talking about the inner lens, and which talked about Shraddha, the belief, what you are, what you think you are, you become. What you see inside, you are going to see that very same world outside. Second shloka, which I took 4.39, clarity and emotional stability. The more clarity you will have emotional stability as a byproduct. Third is the conscious action without attachment. Do not have asakti within you. So, two people can experience the same situation, yet walk away with completely different emotions. Do you agree with this? Why? Because we do not experience life directly. We experience life through our inner lens. This session follows a beautiful progression. State shloka theme. 17.3, inner lens shapes perception. 4.39, clarity creates peace. And 3.19, which I just took, peaceful clarity leads to balanced action. Ultimately, what matters is action. What you are. Unless and until what you perceive, then you have peace. And when you are peaceful, then only you have a balanced action. There are people who say, I know everything. Gyan comes first. But that gyan, if that gyan hasn't given you peace within, it will not reflect in your action. And unless that reflects in your action, it's just nothing. Your work is half done. So it must reflect in your action as well. A person's faith, inner orientation are according to their nature. So just comparing them.
Done?
Just a sec. It beliefs influences emotions. Clarity reduces emotional distortion, and balanced action creates peace. So the inner process, what happens? A small belief leads to perception, leads to emotional regulation, leads to right action. Conscious process. This happens. This has to happen internally. It's an internal landscape, but we can make it as a conscious process by being aware. When we are aware, then have that clarity, then always having a balanced action and then peace. We suffer not only because of situations, but because of the lens through which we interpret. So interpretation is all that matters. So by reading these things, the positivity right in the morning first, it's going to give more of clarity. Over to Dr. Sandhya.
Beautiful explanation as usual, Meenakshi. So before Meenakshi came up with her explanation, we were talking about the flight 232. This was basically the United Airlines flight. And as I said, it's not always important that you follow the manual. Now, in that particular flight, the captain, why did he survive? What happened is because that time in that flight, there was a total hydraulic failure. Now, this scenario, as per the manuals, when there's a total hydraulic failure, the plane is not flyable at all. But the captain refused to accept this and instead tried to rely on the current reality and tried to get inputs from his crew at that point in time, and they decided to fly the plane using only the engine thrust. This was a new thing which was not mentioned in the manual, and the best part is they were able to fly the plane and take the people to safety. So it's important that we always do not look at things with keeping our eyes towards the history. It's important that we look at the reality. Now, coming back to the current slide, that is reactive chaos versus proactive clarity. Now, over here, we have, there are 3 points that we are talking about. There are three, yes. What happens is, did I complete this? Yes. Okay. Reactive chaos versus, I'm getting confused today. Okay. Internally, when we, as I said earlier also, when we react instantly as per a habit, we are guided by biases. So when mind is guided by biases, there is always an ego that I am right. So the primary focus is on protecting the ego. Whereas when we react from our buddhi, what happens is we try to research, we try to find the truth, we try to find what is right. In that case, while in a reactive chaos, your decision is instant, impulsive, the reaction is frantic. In a proactive reaction, where you're speaking from buddhi, the decision is more deliberate, the response is more structured. And the outcome in a deliberate response is more stable as against a reactive response, where you tend to where because your your reactions are frantic, your reactions are stressful, so there's often your mind is fragile. So let's talk about the Viveka protocol. These are the tools that will help you to discriminate. These are the tools which will help you to understand further. Now, what are the tools? We're talking about the red teaming. Now, red teaming over here is, I call as finding the ghost in the code. That means finding something that is not easily visible. Now, very often creators of an idea are so sold on that idea that they cannot see any fault. It's like a mother cannot see any fault in her child. Similarly, so now let's imagine a company which is trying to launch a product, a wellness product for the executives. Now, the company, the team that is launching the product, they're so sold on the product that they may not be able to see the problems with that product. So imagine that team identifies or appoints a red team. Now, what is the purpose of this red team? This red team, the purpose of this red team is only to find flaws, to only come up with something negative of the product. Now, let's say the company is trying to launch a product for the health of the executives. Let's say it's a application that to be applied to the face. Let's say it's a daily powder. Now, what happens is the red team comes up with an explanation like, you have to apply, you have to take 3 steps to apply that powder, whereas there are products in the market which are much easier to apply. Now, because of those 3 steps, what happens is the executives, while it may be a premium product, the executives may go and buy the product just because it is being sold as a premium, but they would not go and repeat the product. So eventually what happens is the repeat sales would not happen, and eventually the product would fail. So having somebody who is out there to try to forcefully find our mistakes will only help us in improving if we take it in a positive way. The second is the pre-mortem. Now, what is the purpose of the pre-mortem? Pre-mortem is a team which thinks or which starts thinking that the product has failed. See, post-mortem, when is a post-mortem done? When something has happened. So pre-mortem kind of assumes that the product has failed, and in case the product has failed, then what to do? So trying to go reverse as to why the product failed. So understanding that would help them understand the client in a better. So it is the transition that if there is a total disaster, trying to understand why the total disaster happened. Because of it, what happens is that the team which is trying to launch a product, or which is trying to launch a service, or which is trying to do something, they will understand eventually that what steps they should avoid to prevent a disaster, because they understand how a disaster happens, what led to the disaster, when they start reverse questioning. So this imagining a total failure might just help in trying to prevent the failure in future. The third tool is kind of detox, or the truth that is not what to say, for which you don't apply some kind of a filter. Let's say, for example, the manager reports that the traffic is slightly lower than expected due to the unseasonal rains, but the customer sentiment is high, and let's say everyone loves the product. Now, we will see this detox example, okay? We will also see in the activity that is going to shortly follow. So I think that the third data detox, where I was talking about reviewing the raw numbers without any commitment. Now, this story, let us have our activity team perform the activity, and we will get to know what is data detox.
Guys, we are drowned in spreadsheets. I was in Nagpur last weekend for a marriage. The energy there is electric. The malls are like jam-packed, and people are carrying like, high-end goods. It's obvious. There is a massive appetite for luxury. No one is, touching upon. I've decided we are like launching the gold premium tier in Nagpur by next month. It's a gold mine. Pakka. What do you think?
Sir, you are right about the energy. Nagpur is definitely buzzing, but I've been looking at this ground level billing data for the luxury sector there this morning. The malls are full, yes, but actual high ticket sales are actually down 14% this quarter.
Data, Rahul, statistics can be misleading. I was there. I saw the crowd with my own eyes. And based on the intuition of 2 decades of experience, your dip in the spreadsheet cannot be, I cannot be wrong, because I saw it myself.
Not at all, sir. Your intuition is exactly why we are even looking at Nagpur. You have spotted a market others miss. But I'm just playing a red team for a moment, so we don't hit a wall later. If the vision is 100% right, we win. But just for a second, if that 14% drop is a trend and not a fluke, what is our plan B? I hate for us to sign a 3 years lease contract and then realize we should have launched the mid-tier executive line instead. How do we protect the downside?
Yeah, plan B. You are worried that we are misreading the footfalls for spending power? Okay, let's hold this list for 48 hours. Rahul, if the luxury spend is tight, what does your data say about your mid-tier segment? Is it where the volumes are moving?
I have that comparison on your text by 4 p.m., sir.
Okay, fantastic.
We saw the activity, and that is exactly what I was trying to refer in data detox. What happens is sometimes reviewing the raw numbers without a narrative, like the way Sanjog decided to, that instead of simply listening to his boss, he decided to look at the numbers and present in a way that his boss does not feel threatened. That is precisely what is data detox. So now here is what I want to challenge all my viewers. If you want to really get the most from this session, follow these 3 steps for the next 24 hours. The next 24 hours, I want you to start with, the first step is audit. That is, ask your harshest critic to literally tear apart with whatever favorite idea you have today. Second, in the next meeting, listen actively, make a point to speak last. And the third step, was your last decision, whatever you have taken, was your last decision based on fact or feeling? So I want you to reflect on it. So again, I repeat, don't just watch this presentation. Act on it for the in the next 24 hours to really benefit from the session. So that is what the path of a trusted advisor is. Not always about self-mastery. It's rather it's not even the absence of bias. It's easy for somebody to say that do not be biased. It's rather be aware of one's bias and trying to take steps to not let that bias come into your decision to so that you bring in objectivity. That is the purpose of this entire session. So beyond this now, we would love to address questions.
Okay, first question to Meenakshi Madam. Meenakshi Madam, it's
Yes,
a very
ma'am.
question.
Yes, sir.
When you talk about your third sloka, you're talking about, is it the similar things of that Karmanya Adhikarestu Mafaleshu Kadachana, or what is the difference between these two? Because I think from the meaning point of view, you have used that meaning of that, because that is also a sloka from Gita. Karmanya Adhikarestu Mafaleshu Kadachana. That is the same thing. That means you have the right to your, you have the right to do the work only, don't talk about the results.
Just you focus on your actions and just do not.
But then why
bother
these
for the
and
results.
one you have talked? What
See,
is the difference between these two?
When Bhagavad Gita, it starts with a question, it starts with a breakdown that Arjun is facing. And after every chapter, he is raising the same question. Like when Karmandika Vadikaraste happened, that time he was not ready to act. That time he was putting his bows down and he was like, I cannot fight. And he also questions Lord Krishna that when you think being knowledgeable is the best thing, having wisdom is the one of the best thing, then why do you entangle me into actions? Then in this shloka 3.19, this happens that he says that even if you, because now he explains that each and every particle who has taken birth on this earth has to take action, has to do action. Asakti. Nobody can, even if we are not doing anything, at least we are breathing. If we are not speaking, at least we are listening. If we are not doing, even when we are sleeping, we are having dreams, we are just not doing anything. So this shloka, what I have interpreted is this, that something or the other you have to do. It's better you do perform your duty. Karmandikavadikaraste was you do your duty irrespective of the outcomes. And this is you perform your duty. At least you do, because you are a Kshatriya, you should perform the duty of a Kshatriya and should not think of becoming a Brahmin and sit just meditate.
Okay, thank you, madam.
This is what I interpreted.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yes, good interpretation. Sandha madam. Sandha madam को question कर सकता हूँ?
Yes, sir, sure.
Okay, listening to your things, I have not read all the verses. I have not read all the verses and in total. Just listening to you, what I feel in all those three aspects of audit and all those things, what are the different steps you are talking at the end? It's not we are trying to make every human as an ideal human, and it's something like a robotic human type of things. Is it? Or there are some human aspects where human can make mistakes. Well, that also should be a part of the human characteristic, whether it should be or should not be. What is your thinking?
Can you repeat the question, sir?
I said, as you speak, how people should behave at the end, how they should reflect, how they find out on all the things, correct all the things. So in that process, it appears that we wanted to make each and every human being as an ideal, एकदम perfect gentleman. But human as a by default to be human is all with the mixed up things. They will make mistakes, they will learn from the mistake, there will be changes accordingly. So why these things? Whether it is something which is not we want everybody as a like robot, everybody like the ideal things, which actually it cannot happen in their life. What is your thinking on that?
Thank you so much, sir. Very nice question. That's what when I spoke about those three steps: audit, listen, and reflect. See, audit is basically you try to the way you are doing in audit. You are trying to tear upon what we are trying to say. Now, what you are doing, you are forcing us to think on, because when we are presenting with passion. We are presenting what we are loving, and then you are trying to make us further see whether you are not pointing our faults. You are instead letting us find our own faults. So that is auditing. Okay, so it is more of introspecting. Now, second is while we are sold on our idea, but if we keep on talking, what happens is we are failing to listen. Now, that's why I said we have question answer session at the end. So in that session, we make a point to listen. So that way, and after we listen, then we think and react. Now in that react, our answers, we are not even saying that we can always be right. We can make a mistake. So that is why the third step is where we are reflecting. Now see, we have gone through audit. We have gone through the process of listening so that we take the right decisions. But again, we are reflecting that, okay, what was the last decision? That may be the decision that I'm just taking. During the reflection, whatever decision I have taken now, is this decision based on fact, or is this decision based on what I feel? And this is not a one-time process. It is a continuous process. We are humans. We are bound to make mistakes. Life is all about learning. So you have to have a learning attitude. That's what Krishna also focuses. He keeps saying, do not focus on the results. Focus on the process. And process, you always try to keep on perfecting. That's why we say karmanevadhikarasya ma phaleshu kadachana. Right?
Same thing in our audit life also.
Yes.
All the steps are also the same. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, madam.
Thank you so much. Rupa ma'am, your turn. You're waiting for your questions. Or you're sharing experience.
I know it's a little strange. So, let's take this case where we should have a goal, and the goal should be, we should not be attached to the goal. We should be attached to the effort we put in to achieve that goal. I will take, let us say, the goal where I want my customer to be delighted. This is my goal. Let us say I'm in the hospitality industry. And then when I'm trying to achieve this goal, I'm unable to do it for some reason. Let us say the customer even made a unfair expectation. But now I'm focusing on my goal. What is my goal? To delight the customer. And I'm unable to do it. Should I be happy? Should I be unhappy?
Okay. Can I answer?
Yes.
Okay. Rupa ma'am, your question was whether the focusing on the goal, if you focus on the goal, you will be unhappy. Why? Because in the service industry, what should you focus on? You should focus on the process of making the customer happy. Because it is not just this customer. There can be many other customers. That customer may come with a bias. You do what is in your hands. You're in your hands. It is not to make the customer happy. What is in your hands? To ensure that you do everything possible. You offer the best service. You offer the best product, or you present it in a manner. You try to understand the customer's requirement. You try to present it in a manner that the customer will appreciate it. But beyond that, you can never focus on the result that the customer has to be happy. That is the result. The result is that I have done my duty to the best possible extent. That is what we have always said. Even Meenakshi has also said the same thing. When Kundu sir asked the question, that is also, there also we try to say that focus on the process, not on the results. Even in the 3 steps that I've said, audit, then I've said listen, and I've said reflect. So you audit, you try to do the best, then the customer is still complaining. So you listen and you still try to improve on your process. But eventually, if the customer is still not happy, okay, you need to reflect that is it really worth me putting in extra efforts on this customer, or it's time for me to move to the new customer. It's time for me to learn from these mistakes, and then in future, maybe that is not the right customer at all. Not every customer may be right for my product or for my service or for my company.
Okay, point taken.
Yes, Meenakshi.
I think there is a clue in today's session to what Rupa ma'am just asked. And the clue is, not to have asakti. You want to have good business. You cannot stick to one customer. You can always have better profits, better expansion with various other customers. And instead of fulfilling the unethical demands of your present customers, you should explore more. And that cannot be a goal. That should be termed as asakti. That's not a lakshya, but that's an asakti. That's all. Thank you.
Correct.
No, I have one point where I completely disagree with basically the idea. Maybe I haven't understood it properly. Not to have asakti is almost impossible, because when you do something, you should do it with asakti. You should do it with passion. You should do it with all of your being. If you didn't do it, then you're cheating somebody of 100% of your effort. If you don't put 100%, if you're not passionate about doing something, why do it at all?
Now,
so I don't
the
believe
mother
that we
has
should not have asakti. I think we should have asakti.
now
There
can
is
I
maybe
Lord
say,
Krishna
my
tells not
definition of
to have.
asakti is very different.
See,
can I say over here?
it requires a regular practice of reading things, because asakti is like if you have liking for cold coffee and you just cannot have hot coffee, so that's your liking. But there may be a situation where you have to have it. I mean, this is something which comes in your nature. Acceptance in everything. Whatever is given, keep accepting and proceed. Accept and proceed. The moment you reject anything, that is asakti. I don't want this. Like when you said no, like I want happy customers, fine. But you have a line of business, you are doing, you have your own mission and vision and goals and everything, your objectives. But if the customer is demanding something which is not in your hands, and still you are fulfilling it, if you are able to find, but if you get into a trap, then what will happen?
Rupa,
Asakti is a very difficult word, I would say, but it needs to be understood. It is not a goal, man. It's not a goal.
Rupa ma'am,
Sure.
what you
Yeah.
said is you do something with passion. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I have always told people, I use the term very often, passionate detachment. If I have to sum up what the verse 2.47 of Bhagavad Gita, that is, karmaneva dhikarase ma phaleshu kadachana, everybody talks about this. But the second part is, ma karma phala hetur bhurma te sangot swara karmani. Now, what does Krishna say over here? You have the right to perform your duties. Okay. Now, when you're performing your duties, perform them with passion. Okay. And then Krishna says, you're not entitled to the fruits of your action. So when you
Correct.
understand this part, that you're not entitled, so passion is your work. Okay. Do your work with passion, but understand results are not dependent on you. Results will happen what has to happen.
Correct. That
What
point
is-
I completely understand.
Yeah,
But
so-
I am interpreting the word asakti as interest. Maybe that's not the correct translation of that word. Asakti is too much of interest. Maybe that's one
That
way
is
to say
passion.
it. But
That is passion.
asakti in its normal form, without it, you can't really do anything. Unless you have interest, asakti, then you can't really do anything.
Yeah. Passionate detachment.
So maybe the definition of the word asakti in this one should be changed. In my understanding, asakti is just not translated to interest. It should be translated into too much interest.
Possible.
It is without unhealthy attachment. Having unhealthy attachment is the word.
Yeah.
When I explain the difference between commitment and attachment, as a businesswoman, you want to have commitment, but to have only those customers, it's an attachment. And there is a very thin line between these two words. I'll give my best, and this must happen my way. So this must happen my way. I mean, I'm putting myself first. Me, and myself, self-ego. That is what Lord Krishna is trying to help us drop doership and ego, which is going to give us victory with this.
Yeah.
And calm.
Okay.
I'm really loving these sessions because they are making us only reflect a lot.
Correct. Sure. Absolutely.
I have got 2 questions for me today, which I'm going to brainstorm, do more of reading, and find out, and just get
Kundu
back to
sir,
you.
anything else?
Okay, thank you, madam. I have to attend one more meeting. That's why.
Thank you, Kundu
Bye.
sir.
It's a nice
Thank you,
session.
Kundu sir,
Okay.
for
Lovely
for
session.
being
Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rupa ma'am. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.